This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com. This show is brought to you by IndyWrestling.us. Check out IWC, RWA, and more. And listeners like you, support this show at patreon.com/Wrestling Mayhem Show.
Hungry as fuck, but I ain't starving yet. Chain for the pain, cocktail bar set. Never said I was a gangster or thug, but I'm an animal. Feeding for the taste of the fly.
Hey guys, it is the Indy Mayhem Show. I'm Mike Sorg at Sorgatron on Twitter here in the Sorgatron Media Studios here in Pittsburgh, PA, and we are back with the Indy Mayhem Show. It's been a little while since we've done this. We've been kind of doing special shows and hangouts and things like that, and not so much for a regular interview pretty much since March when everything went sideways with COVID and all the wrestling shows going away and half coming back, and we're not really sure what to promote these days because we weren't sure what was going to happen. But we are back with it. There's somebody that's been two individuals that have been making an impression before all the shutdown and even now currently, especially currently with one of our friends' projects on IndyWrestling.us, our friends at Fight Underground, making a lot of impressions over there. But first, please go check out everything at IndyWrestling.us and WrestlingMayhemShow.com. WrestlingMayhemShow.com, you can check out all the other pro wrestling podcasts that we do, including our live show on Tuesday night with Wrestling Mayhem Show, the Monday Night Warriors show, right after Raw goes off the air, and of course, the IndyWrestling.us, where we have so much content going on right now, including some new content finally coming to IndyWrestling.network. Look for that. There's a lot of exciting stuff that's going to be announced in the next few weeks for IndyWrestling.network, including just signed on the dial line for a new wrestling promotion being a part of that network. So please go check that out. And you guys have been so great during this crazy off time in supporting those projects. So with me again, a group that has impressed me for I first experienced back at the old Uprise shows with Rise Wrestling. Warhorse is with us. That's Crosshairs Kelly and Pat the Bruiser. How you doing, guys?
Hey, doing pretty good, man. How are you, Sword?
Now I got to point out, if you're not visually with us, and listen on the audio podcast version, because every time that we've done something with Warhorse, it seems like they're coming to us live from their car when we do these Fight Underground live streams. And you're in separate cars this time, at least.
Yeah, we are in separate vehicles this time. We are coming down to Newark, Ohio, to the Ohio Pro Wrestling Academy for Open Gym. So that's where we trained at, and that's where we still come to, work on stuff and attempt to get better. So
that's awesome. So
that's where we're at right now.
One of our icebreaker questions, like a little get to know you before we get into what Warhorse is about. So tell me, what is your earliest memory of pro wrestling for each of you?
Bruiser?
In all honesty, I'd say more likely like the Stone Cold Rock Attitude Era type of wrestling. Just the intensity, the rivalry, just all of it just drew me in. So Rock and Stone Cold was probably some of the earliest memories of wrestling that I can remember that really drew me into wrestling.
Excellent. Kelly?
Yeah, for me, definitely the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, that first Hell in a Cell debut of Kane. That was like the thing that caught my attention. Something about, just being locked in the cage and then the blood and then just this huge behemoth of a man coming out ripping the door off the cage. And that kind of is what caught my attention and drew me in. And then over time, I just developed this sick fascination with it. So definitely Attitude Era, baby. But I've grown to love more than just the Attitude Era. Thank God.
So for both of you, was it a at what point did you think you wanted to get into the ring? Was it from seeing it and just like, I want to be a part of this initially, or did that come over time for you guys?
For me, it was a
no.
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Crosshairs.
For me, it was definitely just because initially, like, I wasn't really interested, but a bunch of my friends were, and then when I started watching it and started getting into it more and like realizing what it was about, that's when I was like, I really want to do this. So when I found out like there is a path or an opportunity to do so, I was like, that was my focus, and that had been my focus for, I would say, at least 10 years
Mm-hmm.
before I could actually follow the path and attempt to get to where I want to be.
Excellent. Well, you, Pat?
For me, it's kind of different. It's not the typical. I've always wanted to be a wrestler. One of my buddies went to the tryout, and I went to try to follow what the see what it was about. And then the moment I got into the ring and started running the ropes and doing the things, and I got hooked. Instantly got hooked, and it's been instantly got hooked, and I've been addicted ever since.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent. So how did you guys did you guys train together, or find yourselves kind of later on to become a tag team?
A combination of two. So we actually we trained together at OPWA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like it was weird because like I messaged James Avery, the head trainer, and I was like, hey, like I'm not in super great shape, like, but I really want to do this. And he was like, well, I'm fat, so you can come on down and give it a try. And I was like, okay, whatever. But it was just like 'cause it was me, Pat, his brother, and another wrestler called Asylum, and like we were just like all big dudes. Like there was just a bunch of big dudes in one class, and so it kind of worked out.
So
Yeah.
that's unusual because it feels like there's not a lot of like large capable guys in indie wrestling. Like you feel like it's I don't want to say mostly cruiserweights to a point, but it's always striking to me when I'm 6'4" and I walk into a room with the roster and I see that I'm taller than everybody. That seems to happen
Right.
less and less these days when we have guys like you, guys like the Main Event, PB Smooth on the rosters. Like it's like the rosters are growing physically these days.
Dude, and I'm a big fan of it too, because like I would either personally I prefer to work like the littler guys because they can do like the flips and the cool stuff. But like there's nothing better than getting two big guys in there that know what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
and like don't mind the physicality of just being two big dudes about to fight each other basically.
Mm-hmm.
So
So was did
I refuse to fight Pat because he's overly aggressive.
so tell me a little bit about how you guys kind of clicked as a tag team. You're already just in a group of big guys. It wasn't just, hey, you're the two big guys, throw you together, right?
No, not at all. Actually, he was tagging with his brother, James the Baker Hickey, for I want to say what about a year. You guys were tagging or so. Um, I was kind of initially on my own, and then I started tagging with Asylum for a little bit, but that was short lived.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was back to me being on my own again. He and Baker were tearing it up tag team wise in a sense. Um, I believe Baker took a break, and that kind of left him without a partner, so he was kind of doing a singles thing. And then we tagged one time. It was a random show where I just needed somebody to tag with, and we tagged one time, and it was just like it was very easy to work with him,
Mm-hmm.
and like we just had this natural chemistry just from training, I'm assuming, and then just like us being in the ring, and we also have like the similar mentality because like we want to work big, but at the same time we don't want to be slow and boring or uncoordinated.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain mentality and a certain style of match that we want to put out, and that doesn't we don't want it to be atypical. So like we're getting to the point now where like we can just look at each other and know what we want to do, or he'll may move a certain way, and I'm like, okay, this is what I should do here. And like so, there's just this weird natural chemistry with us, and then on top of us just being together all the time, it just kind of
All the
worked out.
time.
So it was a weird timing thing. And because initially when we were getting ready to tag, we were supposed to be in a tournament at OCW for their tag titles, and I actually tore my ACL. So that kind of put me on the shelf for I think it was about 6 months, which gave him time to like travel with like Bruce Grant, Ron Mathis, and work at Rockstar and just get better. Like he got so good so quick in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. And so when I came back, he kind of helped me because I was a big fan of not working like a big man. So like there, yeah, there's a lot of give and take in our tag team. Like we learn from each other and we don't mind criticizing each other and being real. So I think that's another thing. It's like we will argue and then I'll sit there and pout because
Yeah, baby.
I don't know. That's just kind of how we function. So we flow well. Sure, yeah.
That's good. Tell me a little bit about it. So you're what does the scene look like for training, getting out there? You mentioned Bruce Gray and Ron Mathis. Definitely, guys we've seen down here in Pittsburgh. I've seen them up in promotions in Cleveland that we're associated with. How are they as an influence for you guys, and things like Rockstar and OCW?
Huge. Ron Mathis and Bruce Gray helped me out a lot when I first started, because the best way to learn in this business when you get out of training is you gotta get on the road, you gotta hit shows, and it's always good to have people like that to pick their brains, learn from, and it just gets you better.
Mm-hmm.
Just gets you better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like both of them have been around forever. Bruce actually trained at OPWA when he started wrestling. But he was a referee before that, and he was an internationally traveled referee. So when you have two guys that have traveled and have worked and like know and love and breathe the business, like it's amazing. Like the random stuff they know. Like, we were listening to a podcast last week with the Arn Anderson and Tully, and like before everything was said, Bruce Gray was just like going into details about everything, and so just being able to absorb the things that they have, and I think they're two highly underrated individuals. But like they've been tagging now lately, and as DD Trash, and being able to work with them in the ring, and then pick their brains outside the ring, and just get advice from them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like there's nothing better than that, and like I feel like we get the long end of the stick a lot of the times when it comes to like the vets and them giving us advice, because we try not to cause too much drama in the back, and we're there to have fun a lot of the time. So when people give us advice, like we listen to it, we process it, and then we try to adapt to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing is just like getting that advice, hitting the road with these vets, and then applying it is what makes you better.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about, obviously, hitting the road has been a big part of things. But everybody, of course, all of that kind of stopped short here in March with the COVID quarantine lockdown issues. How did you guys kind of find adjusting to that? Obviously, some things are starting up. You guys are obviously, still getting out there, getting the training and everything now. But how did that kind of come back, and how did you kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, cope with that kind of situation?
It was initially for me heartbreaking because um, right around the time right before it hit, we had a full calendar
Mm-hmm.
almost. Like we were basically pretty much booked up all the way through December with multiple debuts, and like probably about 90% of that just got scrapped.
Yeah.
So that was initially, it was just like, man, that's rough. Like, what are we gonna do? Me personally, I just kind of focused on like real life stuff and started working like a lot of overtime and just trying to get that done. And then eventually I was like, you know what? Like just seeing everybody's post online, and like how everybody was getting better, and like at least like being in the gym and then watching tapes and still cutting promos. So things like that kind of inspired me and kind of got me thinking. And then plus our trainers were like, this is a reset button. This puts everybody on an even playing field. So take this time to better yourself. So I actually went out and got a personal trainer. Bruiser's been working on his diet. So we're just like trying to do everything around not actually necessarily being able to wrestle constantly, focusing a little bit more on social media, getting new gear, just trying to, make connections and networks for when things do reopen, because a lot of promotions now aren't running. So, in our mind, this gives us an opportunity to send some stuff out
Mm-hmm.
and, try to get somebody's eye just in case when they do start running again, they know who we are.
Excellent. So one of those things that has kind of come out, of course, is we've seen you as part of Fight Underground, kind of a new promotion that's been doing something a little bit different. And full disclaimer, I'm shooting on that. It's part of a project that I'm involved with as well, but with IndyWrestling.us. But it was kind of a different idea, and I don't know how many of these promotions that you're working for now are this kind of closed set, just the other wrestlers are watching, the guys and girls in the on the roster. Has that how have you adapted to even that kind of different environment to perform in?
at least for me, it hasn't been too much of a thing because I know, like for us, the way we train, a lot of times we'll do practice matches during our training session.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have our other classmates or people that are starting out. They'll be there to see us work, and then our trainers are there, of course. They have zero filter, and so they're just like on us constantly about the little things and getting better at the little things to make the bigger things better. So while initially it is different, not having a crowd, that reaction and that energy from them, you have the reaction and the energy from the other workers, which I think is really awesome though too, because you get the opportunity to have, the other guys see you work like, right in the action. Because normally, either people are, working on their matches, getting prepared for their stuff. So they don't necessarily have the time to focus on anybody else. But the way with this is set up, you can actually literally see what everybody's doing. You can see what your competition, brings to the table, and gives you something else to focus on. And I think that's just a different aspect, and I think it's really cool the way that it works too. Just that raw, natural fight setting. I think it's really sweet.
It's a unique thing to adjust to. Because, like I said, like he was saying, you're used to the crowd and you're used to everything. But at the end of the day, for me, it's still wrestling. It's still physical. It's still hitting.
Mm-hmm.
You're still battling. You're still scratching. So at the end of the day, it's pretty much wrestling at its purest form.
One of the so
It really is.
I gotta say I've been personally entertained by you guys since you first hit the scene here under a different name that somebody else is using these days. I don't know if you want to speak to that. Branding, I guess, has been an issue for you guys. Although Warhorse, I think, has been a great pivot for you as well.
So we realized that the name thing was going to be an issue, especially when that person
Hey,
won
we're
a
talking.
specific
We,
championship.
we can say, right? It's Warhorse was originally your
Yeah,
name.
it's Jake Parnell. So yeah, so he when he won the internet championship, I know that was the start of some of our vets going, hey, you might want to consider your name change.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, oh, we're gonna write it out and see how this plays out. And then once he start coming more over to the East Coast, we were like, all right, this is getting kind of sketchy. So initially, it was a lot of it. It was mainly Ron and Bruce. Initially, they were like, hey, you might want to start working on a name change. And then we were at a Rockstar one time, and we were just getting ready for a match, and Fulton came up to us and was like, hey, I like you guys. I just want to give you a heads up. You know, Parnell's picking up steam. You might want to consider it. We had another buddy that ran into him on another show, and they talked about it. So we were sitting around trying to think about what we wanted to be called. And so eventually a promotion gave us the name War Pigs. And we're like,
Mm.
we don't want to be called pigs.
Yeah.
Mm.
We were not a fan of that. We were actually super pissy about it. So we're like, you know what? Screw that. We're hosses. We're big boys. We know how to move. We know how to work, but we're still bringing that same level of intensity. So we just like Warhorse it is. And, I feel like that describes us better. I get a dig out of the name. We still got to keep the WH, which was already on our gear and on our shirt. So it worked out really well. And I know a lot of people that we run into are big fans of our name too, because it's something different. It's
Mm.
not the same thing. And even when we changed our name, somebody had mentioned something on Instagram, and Jake actually commented on it. And he was happy with the name change. And plus, for me, he kind of lives the whole Warhorse thing real hard. So like he is Warhorse. He has defined it via his promos and then the way he carries himself in the ring. So like no love lost, no hate, mad respect for him too because he's putting in the work and getting out there. Um, it's just something that worked out for us. Luckily,
Awesome. Hey, you guys have been kind of attributed to, I love listening to Paul and Jim on the Fight Underground and the Rise commentary because they'll throw back like what teams you remind them of. I think I hear a lot of Legion of Doom Road Warriors in there, of course. I always get a kick out of because your communication, whether it's doing your promos or hear you kind of growl commands at each other in the ring has been kind of interesting. Like I just get a kick out of that every time I hear you guys in there.
It and that was just like it was a natural thing because I used to, so there was a wrestler called named Dustin Reyes. He just recently stepped away from the business, but I always loved it because like when he would cut his promos or when he would talk to people, we would always call it his Batman voice because he was just like, "Get your ass over here," or something like that, or "Get
Yeah.
your ass up." And so like little things like that, and even with like the Legion of Doom, like or the Road Warriors and stuff like that, they would do that, and they would be like, "Man, that's cool," and it's very intense, and
Hmm.
it gets a reaction from people when you do stuff like that. So it just became a thing where, because like in tag team wrestling, you can talk to your partner; he's literally right there. So it's like, why wouldn't I talk to him? But you can't just like talk to him like this because that just seems silly.
Yeah.
But if I like yell at Pat with an intensity to do something, or he yells at me with an intensity to do something, that changes the game because it's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of aggression to it. So that's kind of how we literally do stuff. Like we'll be in separate parts of a locker room or building, and you'll hear a Crosshairs or you'll hear a Bruiser, and then it'll be vice versa to like just get each other's attention. So it's just something that just kind of happened organically and naturally, and it's stuck.
Obviously, Pat is the most talkative one in promos, as you can tell.
So it's funny because I try to get him to talk more, but then like a lot of times people are like, he needs to say less. He's big. He's menacing. Like
Yeah.
just let him sit there and just breathe heavily. But I'm like, but he can't talk though. Like he
Yeah.
can speak and he can cut a mean promo when he wants to. It's just like I have this, as you can tell, and just this. I can run my mouth all the time. I
Mm.
talk trash all the time. I talk shit to him all the time. It pisses him off more than anything, I'm
All
sure.
the
But
time.
but he does the same thing, and so it's funny because like as much as like I talk in promos, like his physicality just meets like the trash talk that I bring.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty either. So I feel like it's fairly balanced ish. But we're working on getting him speaking more, at
Okay.
least yelling at people,
Okay.
threatening them.
Okay. So I'm waiting for that Pat the Bruiser, speech next time we see each other again, right?
It'll be a full soliloquy, and it'll be
Yeah.
excellent.
Excellent. So I don't want to spend too much. Obviously, you guys are in the parking lot getting ready to go train and get better at kicking ass over there.
About
So
6 o'clock, yeah. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
is it
So
6?
whatever time it is, whenever people are seeing this. But anyways, so let's go and close this out. First of all, question I like to throw out to you guys. What is the best and worst thing about independent wrestling?
um,
I'd say
I
the
would
best
say,
Go ahead.
yeah. Go ahead. I'm
the
pondering.
best thing that I think that my independent wrestling is two. And it's tied between two things: the brotherhood and traveling. You get to travel all over. I have been places that I know I never would have been if it wasn't for independent wrestling. I've wrestled in, I've wrestled in some towns that are so small not even on a map, and I wrestled in some major cities that I thought I'd never see. And it's just it's crazy, and then the friendship that you gain
Mm-hmm.
throughout these travels, and the people you meet on these in these little towns that see independent wrestling as like their WWE, and it's just the greatest feeling ever. And that's probably the best thing about independent wrestling, in all honesty.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely it's the excitement. There's nothing more exciting than like getting in front of that live crowd and just feeling that energy and from the way that they react to what you do. Being able to control a crowd
Mm-hmm.
is just something special. Being able to have them cheer or boo you is just it's an awesome feeling that I don't think there it's literally an addiction. That's so it's like give and take. Like for everything that's great with wrestling, like you do end up you miss out on things because you're trying to grind, you're trying to hustle, and you want to be better. So you have to put in the time, you have to put in the effort, and you have to travel, you have to go to shows, you have to miss family events. But it's worth it in my mind though too, because like eventually, hopefully, it's going to pay off. It will pay off when you put in the work, and you know, just being in that ring, there's nothing like it. And then there will never be anything like it.
It's great. So I want to throw a little challenge question out here, since we talked about how Pat is going to drop us a monologue next time we see him for Fight Underground. Pat, can you give any words of wisdom for everybody out there dealing with their lockdowns and trying to get back to normalcy these days? Just something to get people motivated.
Just ride the wave. Just ride the wave, man. Like it's a crazy thing happening right now, but it's all you gotta do is keep riding the wave, listen to what they're telling you to do, and it'll all pass eventually. Eventually, the grass is always greener on the other side.
There you go. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to see you guys shoot your matches and have a conversation with you guys. Once again, please let everybody know where they can find you on social media and follow what's going on.
So they can find us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Warhorse MDK for all of those. And then we just started a Pro Wrestling Tees, so you can just search us on Pro Wrestling Tees / Warhorse.
There you go. Thank you guys so much, and of course, check them out in action over at IndyWrestling.us, IndyWrestling.network, the Fight Underground, and all the places that we were talking about here today. And until next time, please support Indie Wrestling. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.